We are in project 4. We're still working on the section that covers swatch management. We're going to make a new pattern swatch out of the snowflake that's in the middle of the lake. So with your selection tool, pick up and select the snowflake and click on it and drag it onto your swatches panel. It creates a new pattern swatch. We would like you to double click that and rename that snowflake. Hit enter, and then double click on the snowflake little icon that's there to open up your pattern options panel. This is edit pattern mode. It's a special interface where you can define specific parameters of the pattern. It might be a good idea to zoom in a little bit so that you can actually see what your snowflake pattern looks like, and I'm going to close my gradient box. I don't need that right now. At the bottom of the pattern options panel, uncheck the show swatch bounds option if that is already selected. The copies menu determines how many copies of the pattern artwork appears in the pattern preview. The dim copies to field reduces the opacity of the copies so you can distinguish the actual pattern artwork in the center. The tile edge, which appears as a solid black line on the artboard, is the area that is repeated when you apply the pattern. The swatch boundaries is simply the storage space surrounding the pattern artwork. If you change the tile size, the swatch boundary shrinks and grows to accommodate the new tile size. When you first create a pattern, the tile size matches the size of the pattern artwork, and you can use the width and the height fields in the pattern options panel to change the tile size, or select the pattern tile tool at the top of the panel to manually resize the tile on the artboard. Activate the link icon to link the width and height and change the width field to 1/2 inch. Changing the tile size changes the way individual objects interact when the pattern is repeated. Artwork outside the tile area is still included in the pattern, overlapping the other repeating objects. If you change the size of the artwork, you can check this tile to art option to force the tile to match the resized artwork. When this option is active, you can use the H and V spacing fields to add or remove a specific amount of space around the artwork when it's repeated. You can also use the overlap options to determine how individual objects affect each other in the repeated pattern, which is useful if pattern artwork has applied effects or transparency. In the Tile Type menu, choose Brick by Row. The tile type determines how the pattern artwork repeats. When you choose one of the brick options, you can use the brick offset menu to determine how the bricks are stacked in the repeating pattern. Click the Done option at the top of the document window. That saves the changes to the existing pattern. If you had already applied the pattern anywhere on the file, these objects would reflect the new pattern. Reselect the snowflake from the middle of the lake and delete it. And using the rectangle tool, create a rectangle that fills the entire artboard. Apply a 6-point black stroke and apply the snowflake pattern to the fill. In your Layers panel, create a new layer called Background. Move it to the bottom of the layer stack and move the artwork down to the background. The pattern appears behind the other artwork, but it's still too strong compared to the other objects in the file. Deselect everything on the artboard. In the Swatches panel, double-click the snowflake pattern to open up the Edit Pattern mode, and at the bottom of the Pattern Options panel, uncheck Dim Copies so you can actually see the pattern that will result from the changes. Using the Selection tool, click to select the snowflake artwork, that's the one in the center, and in the Color panel, I'm going to move my swatches back here now. In the Color panel, we want to change the fill tint to 25%. Click Done at the top of the window. When you click Done, the changes come up wherever the pattern has been applied. Lightening up that color makes the overall background pattern a lot more subtle, and now you can save the file. Next, we're working in stage 2, which is working with brushes. Brushes decorate paths. The default brushes panel includes several brushes of different types. They're very basic. You can use the Brushes Panel Options menu to change the panel displays, manage the brushes, and load different brush libraries. The Brushes panel appears by default in thumbnail mode. If you choose List View in the Panel Options menu, you can get a drop-down listing. It will show the name of the brush as well as an icon that indicates the type of the brush. We're going to create a new art brush. In your Layers panel, create a new layer named Ski Lift. With your selection tool, select both of the lines that represent the lift axis, and then drag the icon for that up to the ski lift layer. Alt or Option click on the ski lift eye to hide all of the other layers, and click off to deselect. We're going to create a brush for the paths. Somewhere on your artboard, pick up your line tool and create a 5-point horizontal line that is approximately an inch long, or you can type one in and create it. Change the point size to 5 points. Change to your selection tool, and with that item selected, you can edit, copy, edit, paste in front. Then change the stroke weight of that item from 5 points to 2.5, and change the color to a 40% grayscale. Select both of the lines that we created and go to Object, Path, Outline Stroke. This converts the stroke path to a filled object, and you can click off to see it. After outlining the strokes, the two objects are now filled shapes. Select both of the rectangles and group them. Open up the Basic Brush panel, take the two lines and drag them onto the Brushes panel. You're going to get this dialog box pop up, and we want to select Art Brush. And in the next dialog box, change the name to Ski Lift and click OK. Now you can actually delete those two lines from your artboard. Make sure you save somewhere along here. Now select those two paths and click the Ski Lift brush in the Brushes panel. The paths will immediately take on the appearance of that brush. With the paths selected, double-click the brush in the Brushes panel to open up the dialog box for the options. In the Art Brush Options dialog box, change the width field to 200%. and then click OK. When you get this warning box, select to apply to strokes. Make sure you save your file, and please make sure that you've read Understanding Art Brush Options on the bottom of page 197, which will discuss many of the options available to you in that dialog box. Let's take a look at the full map now. If you look at it closely, you might notice a problem where the ski lift paths connect. The dark gray of the horizontal path overlaps the light gray of the vertical path. With both paths still selected, choose View, Hide Bounding Box. Now open your Appearance panel. Your paths are still selected, and go to Object, Expand Appearance. Now in the Appearance palette, you can see that the contents are grouped. When you expand the appearance of a selection, Illustrator simplifies the selection as much as possible into basic filled and stroked shapes, and the resulting shapes are then grouped. In the Layers panel, again, expand the ski lift layer. Click the arrows to expand each group. Each group contains the two paths that make up the brushstroke. With the expanded paths still selected, choose Object Ungroup. Deselect everything, and I'm going to re-hide the rest of my artwork so I don't accidentally move something. And select the lighter path of the horizontal ski lift and choose Select. Oh, let's click off. There we go. Select Same, Fill Color. Open your Pathfinder panel and click the Unite button. All of the selected shapes are now one single object. When you use Pathfinder, the merge objects move in the stacking order position to the highest object in the original selection. And you can see these are now combined into a single path. This isn't working the same as the Shape Builder tool. That moves the merge objects to the stacking order of the first object you click. Do the same thing with the black shapes to make that into a single path. You can now collapse the ski lift layer, and we'll zoom out and close Pathfinder and save our file.